Do you now believe that you must proactively lead generate every day to have a chance to succeed in this business?
100%. Most people misunderstand what the business is all about from the get-go.
They want to win in this business, but they're just struggling. What could you tell them to help them out?
You have to be consistent, number one.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the show. Today, we've got another one of our coaching students, Alex Mashkin, with us. Alex, welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Brandon. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to get in this conversation. We were just talking about a lot of really good kind of behind the scenes nitty gritty stuff off air. So I want to just pick that up before we really unpack your story, your results, your business, what's working for you today, Alex. Give everybody an understanding. Where do you sell real estate and how long have you been doing it?
Sure. So this is my fifth year. I started terrible at math. So I think this is my fifth year. I started at the very beginning of 2018. So actually, this is my fourth year. So, where I sell, so I am in the northern suburb of New York City, Westchester and Putnam counties, about an hour outside of Manhattan. And then that's my primary market. And then I'm a managing agent for 12 buildings in Manhattan for leasing. So I fully handle leasing for 12 buildings within Manhattan. So those are my two primary markets.
Got it. I love it. So I want to just literally jump right into it. And one of the things that I, am very passionate about is this, what really is causing real estate agents to win and them to fail, quite frankly. And I think this notion that people in our industry, Alex, can take a passive approach, sit back, maybe post a little bit here and there in social media, that's going to be enough to have people, reach out to them where they can succeed in this industry versus what you've learned how to do, which is proactively go out there and generate business. Can you give us your insight? You've been doing this. You're not a new agent. You've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. I really want your opinion, your honest thoughts on how to go about succeeding in this industry.
Sure. So I think there's two kind of main things that real estate agents, that at least in my opinion, that successful real estate agents do when it comes to generating business. And that has to do with the fact that you have to be consistent, number one. Without consistency, it's just you might as well just be bashing your head against a brick wall. And number two, I think, is commitment. I think you have to be committed to it. I think and I can tell you, commitment wise, I have gone through my fair share of different coaching programs and different mentors and just a variety of different things. And I can tell you that once you find one that works for you, the best thing that you can do is just stick to it and be consistent. I think those are the two things that are most important in the business once you actually get to the lead generating part.
I love it. And, that leads me right into really my next question, which is like, I try to set really good expectations for people that are either A, thinking about, Alex, getting into the industry, or B, that say they want coaching and accountability. And what I mean by this specifically is around what I believe the truth is, which real estate is a direct outbound sales business. And so many people are trying to believe in this myth to try to make it an inbound business, a marketing business. What is your opinion on that? What was your approach before you and I started working together? Were you able to generate the business that you are now, kind of taking a passive approach versus treating it like a real sales business?
I was one of the people you're talking about here. So so just to give you a quick backdrop, just a step back to my story. So I came from the car business. I started as a salesperson in Indiana, which is where my journey started. And that's a passive business. You sit in your dealership and there's a person that comes in from a car lot. There's a person that calls, an internet lead comes in, you answer, you get them in, you set the appointment, and the rest, you just follow the steps to the sale.
It's all inbound, right?
It's all inbound. Everything is inbound. The only thing that you do outbound is your sphere and you communicate and keep in touch and stuff like that.
Maybe lease turn-ins or past customers, but for the most part, 80-90% of the car business is an inbound sales.
All passive. Yeah, all passive. You sit on your ass all day and you
Yeah.
just service those people that have come in because the dealership's doing advertising, because somebody needs a new car. And that's really the way we do things in the car business, is you have to go into a
Yep.
car lot and check it out. So, I think I was a little bit unprepared when I entered the real estate business. And just like my car business career, which I succeeded in, I was consistently one of the top performers in every dealership that I worked in. And I went through 3 dealerships in my 8 years that I spent in the car business. And so, when I went into the real estate business, I thought, how much different could it be? It's sales. I'm good at sales. I can do it, And so I think that what has happened is I very quickly realized how wrong I was, and how a huge part of real estate, and to succeed in real estate, is having to prospect and having to go out and actually actively get business. I would fall victim to Facebook and Instagram ads that said, one particular one that sticks in my head is just kind of a lady sitting there saying, yeah, cold calling worked if it was 1985. And then, it's like, if you really want to generate business, let me show. So I fell victim constantly to those things because I was looking in the wrong place. I was looking in the passive place of how to generate business. And I failed time and time again until I came across, some YouTube videos from somebody who I think is very well known. His name is Ricky Carruth. And so that's where the breakdown of my existing mentality started to happen, where I started finally to realize, okay, I've been in this for 3-something years. It is not working. Well, it worked on some level, but every single thing that I've done that has led me to having a successful outcome has in one way, shape, or form tied into me actively going out and prospecting for business. And so at that point, I just kind of sat down and I thought, okay, this is not working. So let's change the approach. There's no way back now. So I'm committed. So let's change the approach and let's see if it works. Ricky Carruth is how I started, and you are, I think, where I'm going to stay for a while and hopefully end.
Got it. I love it. So, and we'll get more into that too. And I like that you bring that up. I know exactly the ad that you're talking about. She ran ads on my YouTube channel for the longest time. And here's the thing. I want to spend a little bit of time here. This is the thing. Messages like that, Alex, are the messages it's the exact message that real estate agents are looking for, because here's the truth. The truth is this business is very difficult. It is an outbound sales business. That's truth. People don't want to accept that. Okay. It's a very difficult path, but it's the truth. It's the path that leads to the income in this business. Right. Path of least resistance is easy. Sit back, social media, become famous, post. Right. You don't need to do any of that hard stuff. Don't listen to that. And so when the person hears this, the message works so well because they're looking for these shiny objects to say, see, I knew there was a better way. And it's so attractive. It's so appealing for somebody, Alex, that's in pain, who says, man, I'm just struggling. I don't want to pick up the phone. I can't accept that I'm a salesperson. And then a message like that comes across their channel. And it's like, oh,
I knew it.
I knew it. There it is. And then they constantly get in debt and they buy all these marketing things from people who have never succeeded in our industry. Yep. And so I love that you bring that up. What advice would you give to somebody brand new to the industry, thinking about getting in the business, not reaching the levels of success that they want? Do you now believe in every fiber of your soul that you must proactively lead generate every day to have a chance to succeed in this business?
100%. 1 million, 1 billion, trillion, whatever you want to call it, absolutely is the only answer to that question. And look, for somebody who is, brand new in the business, I think, the advice that I would give them that I don't think was necessarily clearly given to me is that if you have just entered a business and you think that this is just about going and showing some houses and having some fun and stuff like that, take a step back and reevaluate is what I would say. Find somebody who has been successful and ask how they got to that point, because it's just not, the passive approach might work for some. It very well might. Somebody who is extremely good at social media, but this is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
If we take the sort of the overall populace, it's a drop in the bucket of the people that actually become successful off of the passive approach versus everyone else who fails. The failure rate in the real estate business is already unacceptably high.
That's right.
And I think that also has to do with the fact that most people misunderstand what the business is all about from the get-go. But yeah, absolutely. Prospecting and actively going out to get business is the number one thing that you have to learn how to do. Otherwise, you'll never achieve the levels that you hope for. And if you're failing right now and something is not working, then you got to take a step back and reevaluate and actually look at what you have done, what has worked, what has not, and where you can improve.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, there's a thing that I challenge all the marketers out there selling all these little widgets and gadgets and all this, Facebook ad, Instagram, all this stuff. And I call it the 60-minute challenge, Alex. And here's how it works. I say, let's grab 2 agents live on YouTube. One agent calls for sell by owners, expireds, absentee owners, makes outbound prospecting phone calls for 60 minutes. The other one does Facebook ads just for 60 minutes. And we'll see at the end of 60 minutes where we end up. And here's what I know. What I know is that agent one, like you, is going to have 8 to 10 quality conversations, going to end up with at least one seller lead to put into the database. Whereas this person running the magic Facebook ad or whatever comes out in 60 minutes, the ad's not even up yet. They come out with nothing. So anyway, that's a separate thing. That's a little fun I have.
Sure.
My challenge for any marketer person out there that ever wants to challenge this. So
agreed.
Let's get into lead generation. What were you doing to generate sale business? Because I know you had some success in the leasing space in New York, because that's a big market. But as far as generating, sales business, right, in real estate, before we started working together, what were some of the things that you tried? What were you doing to generate business?
All right. What did I try? I tried Facebook ads.
Tell us about that. Tell us about your experience with that.
So I would aggressively advertise the few listings that I did have on Facebook. Okay. Because I was like, every time I'd get a listing, and look, I'm a real estate investor. So, I would advertise my own listings, and I was like, oh, this is great. Every time I had a house that I flipped and I put it on the market, I would aggressively advertise it on Facebook, and I would get 1 million people reaching out to me. Like, my time was taken up by all the people that have reached out. And one thing that I quickly, it took me a year, I guess, but one thing I quickly came to realize is that there are plenty of buyers out there, or what I thought were buyers.
Right.
Because it is one thing to generate a lead. It's a whole other thing to force a lead. How you always say you're forcing a lead. That's what I was doing all last year. I was forcing and just packing leads into my CRM, thinking, I'm so busy. This is great. This is going to be terrific. End result, though, is that none of those leads actually came to a closing, which is what, at the end of the day, matters. So it's easy to generate a lead.
Exactly.
It's easy to generate a lead. There are more leads out there than I think, drops of water in the ocean. But whether that lead would actually get to the end result that you're looking for is a whole different story. And so there, and just like, with your program, I learned that there are certain qualifications, there are certain categories that each lead has to meet in order to actually be considered a lead. Otherwise, it's just a contact.
That's right.
Facebook ads, really, Facebook ads, so much fake information. It's not even funny. Fake phone numbers, fake emails, fake whatever, fake names. I mean, it's crazy. I've gotten yelled more by people by reaching out from Facebook ads than I think I ever have in my life.
So that's you just brought up, Alex, exactly what I wanted to talk about. Here's the other myth. Okay. So the other myth is that, well, we can just generate leads that come into our system. But here's the issue. There's a couple issues here. Okay. So number one is the people or the leads that you're generating off Facebook, Instagram, wherever these companies are generating them from they're mostly force registration leads. Like, this is really analytical, and I'm glad that we're getting into this. But what that means for all the audience is they're running an ad on a listing, forcing the opt-in. That's why you get so much fake information.
Correct.
But even the ones that you get that are real data, here's myth problem number one. You still have to pick up the phone and call the person who is not expecting your call, doesn't want you to call, not interested in anything you have to talk about. Isn't that a cold call? That's number one. Number two, you said this off air. Here's the other thing agents are missing when they feel as though they put the credit card out, Alex, it's going to save their career in real estate, is the lack of skills. Even if you're generating leads, however you're generating them, and they come in, if they're real, you still have to pick up the phone. You have to have a conversation over the phone. You have to have skills to set the appointment. And then, oh, by the way, when you get to the appointment, you have to have skills that compel the seller to sign a contract. Exactly. So just putting the credit card to Zillow, putting the credit card to these websites that give you leads solves nothing. And to your point, a lot of agents find themselves in more pain that way than if they just generated the leads on their own. Would you agree with all of that?
100%. And look, I was that person last year. I would prospect. First of all, I was incredibly inconsistent because every time I would come across a objection or something that a person on the other line would say that I was unprepared for, I would just freeze. I would freeze, and then I would spend sometimes hours trying to figure out what would be a good way for me, because I want to be prepared. I want to be professional. Sure. I want to make sure that, I can be, I want it to be a good salesperson. I wanted to be a salesperson that can help. But a lot of times, just like people came on the car lots, and this is what I compared it constantly, and I would come out to the lot in South Bend, Indiana, in 100 degrees summer weather. And, I would say, hey, can I help you with anything? And they'll say, we're just looking. Whenever you call the first time, or even the second, or sometimes even the third time, it's a conditioned response.
That's right.
It's what we've been taught to do all of our lives. When we come across to this, sleazy salesperson that is bothering us, whereas I've come time and time again, I've come across people that I know have a question, that I know need help, yet they're sitting there telling me, we're just looking, like, leave us alone. And so I would spend hours trying to figure out how to overcome that and how to get to the next level of a deep, meaningful conversation where I can actually show them why going with me versus doing something on their own, or versus just saying, just looking, is a better way to go.
Yeah.
And so, but it was just taking so much time, and it would get me into like analysis paralysis constantly. Whereas when I joined your coaching program, not only was I trained and taught how to properly set the appointment, how to properly make a call, I was also taught on what actually to do when you get to that, when you finally, after hundreds of calls, after tens of contacts, after all of that time that you spend lead generating, you finally get to an appointment, and then you, pardon my French, shit the bed. You don't know what you're doing, but now I have my materials ready. I know exactly what to do, when to do it, what questions to ask. And I don't even want to call it handle objections, because that's not what we're doing. Right. We're simply trying to tell people how we can help, and if they want our help, why it makes sense.
I love it. That's great. So So you trying all these marketing things in the beginning, then, right. You probably tried a bunch of other stuff too, which, maybe
a million other things.
Million other things, right?
Dealer Premier Agent was one of them, since that's what a lot of people.
There you go.
I mean,
yes.
A lot of people do that. And unfortunately, I'm still locked into a contract with them. But the second that thing expires, it's gone. Like, I am not, I'm done.
So let's give the audience some context. So you and I end up working together, but it hasn't been that long yet, right? So how long have we been working together?
Nothing. I started in January, beginning of January,
when
I actually started picking up calls. Now, I did at the last quarter of last year is when I started actually going through a program, through the videos and stuff like that, started creating all of my materials and stuff like that. So yeah, it took me a certain amount of time to learn all the scripts, because we have to write them out 10 times and chant them and do it in front of a mirror and whatever, So, and I've practiced, my poor wife has been my guinea pig all throughout this exercise, and so, so it took a lot of practice, but solid, consistent work beginning of January. So it's been a little over a month. Today's February 8th.
Got it. So let's unpack that 30 days. Okay. So, I'm a huge proponent in really action and skills being the foundation of this business. Taking a lot of action and really crafting your skills as a salesperson will lead to amazing results. So let's first start with, what have been some of the key milestones in working together, some of the things that you've learned from a sales ability that you think have impacted you the most, which has allowed you to go out there, prospect, and set listing appointments.
Yeah. So I can tell you, I have a perfect answer for that question. And that is that going through everything and learning everything that you've put out there has really allowed me to prepare for any potential outcome that might happen. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes curveballs still happen, and I still don't know. And that's what the weekly coaching calls are for. We had one yesterday. I asked you some questions because, I came across a couple of people last week when I was calling that just like threw me for a loop a little bit, but instead of spending hours researching and trying to figure things out, I wrote it down in my notes, and I was like, okay, next time I'm speaking with Brandon, I'm definitely going to ask him these questions. And so, but now I know. And so the analysis paralysis is over, which is I think the number one reason why I struggled for so long to actually make the calls, to actually schedule those appointments, because I was constantly changing and trying to figure things out. Whereas once I learned it all, it gave me the confidence to actually get on the call, speak with somebody, sound confident when I'm actually speaking with them, setting an appointment, learning my market and stats. And I didn't know showing time could do the things that it does, the things that you have shown, and stuff. So, I think that was the number one, being prepared for every outcome, I think was one of the biggest factors into me actually making phone calls and being consistent about prospecting every day.
I love it. All right, cool. So break down your lead sources that you're focused on now, and then walk us through like your daily schedule.
Yep. So prospecting, I start prospecting at about 9:30, and at noon, typically I'm done. Now, remember, I've been doing this for a month, and my goal eventually is to get to start prospecting even earlier than that. A small portion of that goes to the, especially on Mondays, I do my Monday phone calls to everybody to check in after the weekend. So, that's towards the afternoon. That's what I, like from 11 to 12, I would say, depending on how many calls I have to make. That's the last part that I do. Call source for now, FSBOs. That's the number one main source of leads. I have yet to go through the expired scripts, which I am planning on implementing this month. And because I already cover, 2 counties and a small portion of a third county, which is a lot of driving on my part, to go to appointments and stuff like that. So instead of having to widen my area by location, my goal is actually to narrow it, but expand the pillars, right?
That's right.
We talk about that all the time. What are the main pillars? What are the main sources? So for now, I'm getting really, really comfortable with for sale by owners. The next part, just like you say, don't do everything at correct. So I got really comfortable and consistent with for sale by owners. Next is expireds. I think that's a big part of it. And I got your scripts ready, and I'm taking a look at them and learning them and stuff like that. And then I've always been a huge follow-up guy. My database is a consistent producer of referrals and repeat business. Now, fortunately and unfortunately, a lot of that is currently rentals, because I've been in the rental business and leasing for so long that there's just a lot more of those clients in my database. But man, am I looking forward to these deals that I'm doing now that are for sales, because I'm scheduling birthday campaigns through mailbox power. And I just closed on a transaction in January, and literally a week later was her birthday, and she got the brownie, and she reached out and she's like, "Oh my God, that was so cool. Thank you so much for the brownie and the card." And I mean, it hasn't fully taken effect, just because there's so much to do. But I think once everything is implemented, it is going to help me absolutely explode my business.
I love it, man. That's great. That's powerful stuff. I'm excited for you, and I can feel your passion and how excited you are about it.
I can't wait. I used to wake up every morning thinking, I have to make calls. Oh my God, this is the worst. I hate it. Now I wake up, I'm like, all right, workout, prospecting time, let's go. And it's just the difference in mentality makes all the difference in the world. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I'm going to circle back to that in a second, because you're right. It's in the approach that we take that I think is a big deal. So in the last 30 days of changing your mindset, your approach, your schedule, your systems, processes, marketing, messaging, skill, all of that. Let's talk about some hard numbers for a second. In the last 30 days, how many FSBOs have you been able to convert into listings?
Right. So let's talk about that. So, I mean, I've made a lot of calls.
Sure.
Calls, as you know, don't count as contacts, but I did make roughly about 15 legitimate contacts. I went on preview appointments with them. Some of them are still going through the pain of trying to sell on their own. But the great thing is they're not falling into the black hole. Yeah. They're not falling into the place where follow-up doesn't exist. They're in my CRM. They have automated texts every Friday. I have a reminder every Monday. They're in my mailbox power. I am doing the full scale guerrilla campaign.
Love it.
And every angle, I'm sending them mail, I'm calling them, I'm texting them, I'm sending them my emails through my MLS. So they're constantly in my sort of, in my gravity pool. And so, but hard numbers. So yeah, I met with about 15. Out of those, I went on 4 listing appointments. Out of those, I got 2 listings just in January. And now one of my listings is in contract. And the second listing that we got 15 offers. By the way, the second listing that I got happened during a call that I had with you. That's and you were answering my question, and I saw the number and I recognized that it was the for sale by owner that I had met with the day before. And I was like, oh, this has got to be good news. So I hopped off as you were answering my question, and I picked up the call. That led me to go on a listing presentation. Then after that he on the spot gave me the listing. We signed all the documents right then and there. I called my photographer on the way home. I booked him for the next day. We put the property on the market. 15 offers later, this guy is as happy as can be.
It's amazing.
So yeah, I have on the second listing, I have an accepted offer. And by the way, using the Gary Keller strategy, the listings, leads, and leverage, absolutely, I now am working with multiple buyers off of these listings that I didn't pay a dime to generate.
That's right. And those are the best buyer leads you can generate is from your listings, people.
Exactly. And by the way, every single one I scheduled a buyer's consultation for. Some of them are this week. Every single one has agreed to work with me exclusively. It's
completely different way of doing business, right?
It's completely different.
Yeah.
And the conversations, like a couple of them I met during open houses, and the face-to-face, all I had to do is ask, are you guys currently working with somebody who is, sending you market reports, who is, updating you on freshest listings in the market? Oh no, we didn't know you could do that. How about we sit down? Let me present to you how I can help you and how I can make your life easier. Looking for a house is already complicated enough, especially in this market. Let me show you how I can help.
I love it.
That was it.
That's so good. So really quick, staying on the numbers for a second. So you spoke with 15, right? Like 15 FSBOs.
I spoke with 15. Yep. Out of that, I went on multiple preview appointments, but I got 4 listing appointments. Out of those 4, I got two listings.
So here's what's incredible over the last 30 days. Okay. I want to put this in context for every single real estate agent that's ever going to watch this. Okay. Here is so much, like, hopefully, like, golden value for people. This is why this model, it proves itself over and over and over again. Okay. So I always say, of the people you come in contact with, 10% of those will convert into a listing appointment. And if you're just getting going, you'll convert half of those. You converted 13% of those for sale by owners, right? 15 into force, 13% conversion. You had a 50% closing ratio, got you 2 listings in 30 days. How much in sales volume were those 2 listings?
So one of the listings was for 275,000.
Yeah.
And then the other one was a baby listing. That was for, oh man, I can't even remember. 200. I think 200 is where we ended up pricing it. I can't even remember anymore.
That's okay. So just under $500,000 in sales volume
in 1 month.
In 1 month.
In one month.
And you're just starting, and you don't have this big ad budget. You're not buying leads. You're not doing any of that. And so that's why I get so excited, Alex, is like, once you start putting more of these systems in place, you start growing a pipeline. I mean, you nailed it. Like, things are just going to blow up for you. So that's really exciting.
And can I just add one thing
Please.
to that? And these are, I would consider, probably a little bit below the average price point.
Right.
So my goal, not to get too cocky, but my goal is to eventually increase the total sort of price point, right? So to get into the more expensive price points, because those are always a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
But that's okay. My golden middle sort of is around 500,000. That's where I want to be, and that's where I'm going to continue working towards. And one of the appointments that I had was with a seller who was, we were going to put the property on the market at 700. Now I lost that listing. That was my very first listing appointment. So I was going into it with no expectations whatsoever. And I probably messed up a few things in there, but the point is, practice makes perfect. I went on the first one. I probably messed up, possibly that's why they listed with somebody else. Although she told me it was because, her attorney, who she'd known since kindergarten, has referred somebody, and blah, blah. Anyway, bottom line is, nothing is as it seems, but the first one was a little rough. I was sitting in the car in their driveway reading through just to make sure I don't forget anything. I had a little cheating note, and I probably looked at it a couple of times. But as I went on, and as I went to the second, third, and fourth listing appointments, every time I got more comfortable. And the last listing appointment I did, which he hasn't signed yet, but I think I built so much more rapport with that seller than I did on my first one. The last half an hour, we didn't even talk about the listing. We started talking about investments, and he told me he has a portfolio throughout the United States. And we talked about that because I also invest into real estate. We started talking about kids. I mean, it was a completely different feel. And so as long as I continue being consistent and going on these appointments, I'll continue getting better and better and better. And I think I'll my goal for this year is 24 listings. I think that, especially when the spring and the, the season sort of comes in, I'll probably be doing a lot more than that.
Yeah. And I mean, I was going to say 24 is because 24 is always my goal within the first year, me working with an agent. Because 24, if you do that, how much in income will that represent for you roughly?
In the average price point, it's probably going to be around 300,000.
Yeah. Yeah. So then next year, I mean, that's when things get really exciting, when you can double that and start making over $500,000 a year. Right. Which is absolutely going to happen for you. And I love the advice you just gave, which essentially is like, what you're saying is the learning is in the doing. Yep. Like every time you make a phone call, you get better, regardless if it's a rejection or whatever, your skills grow. Every appointment you get better. You start growing your confidence. The consistent habits over time is the thing that's leading to your results, to your confidence, to your skills growing. Is there any other, I guess, last pieces of advice you want to leave to people that are watching this that maybe are struggling, Alex? They want to win in this business. They like this business, but they're just struggling. What could you tell them to help them out?
So I think two things. I think number one, don't expect immediate gratification. Right. Because I think as a society, we have become extremely used to, and I think that's part of the reason why Zillow is so successful. You put your credit card in and boom, you got your phone's ringing, you're taking people out on showings and stuff like that. But are you tracking your numbers? Are you tracking what your ROI is and whether it actually works for you? So I think for those that are truly successful, I think the number one thing to know and understand is that it takes time, and it takes time to build consistency. It takes time for that consistency to develop into a habit. And that's from your doing side of things, from prospecting. But more importantly, once you actually start prospecting, it takes time for just the natural flow of the deal. I mean, in our area, it takes 45 days to get the damn title work. Right. You know what I mean? So from the time you from the time you make the first call to the time you actually are sitting at a closing table, 5 months could pass.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point. Yeah.
And so I think the biggest point of advice that I can give is be prepared for it to take time, and be prepared to give that time. And if you can't give that time, then you have to either reevaluate whether you're in the right business. Because look, when I left the car business, I saved a year worth of expenses because I knew that this isn't going to be something, just based on my conversation with people that have been in the business, I knew that this isn't going to be like, oh, I sold a car, I get paid on Friday. That isn't the right business for that.
Yep.
So the number one thing is that everything takes time. And number two, I think that it's important to not develop the shiny object syndrome. I was victim of that, even as recently as last year. Every time you find that something doesn't work, you jump to the next thing and to the next thing and to the next thing. And so what ends up happening is you end up, instead of developing consistency, you're developing inconsistency, and you're constantly hopping from one thing on another without really giving it a solid chance for it to work. So my advice would be, give it a solid try. Take 6 months, be committed to one thing. Don't hop around from one thing to another, from one coach to the next, from one mentor to the next. Stick with one person. Take advice from one person. Make sure it works. And you know what? If you've been doing it for 6 months and it just hasn't produced results, then look for something else. That would probably be my two. And it boils down to consistency and commitment.
I love it, man. What great advice. And that's why, Alex, I love working with you. I love our conversations every week. I think that everything you just outlined for the people watching this video, there's a lot of golden nuggets. And that's why I love working with you so much. So thank you for doing this and pouring back into this industry, because it will inspire so many other people that are struggling, that really, really need help. So I really want to thank you for that.
No, thank you. I could not be more grateful that I became a part of your coaching program, and I look forward to developing and helping it whichever way I can, and just being a producing member of our community.
I love it. I love it. Well, Alex, I cannot wait to stay by your side throughout the rest of 2022 and beyond. And, I have no doubt that the goals in which we've talked about will come to fruition because you are willing to be coachable, you put in the work, and you have the commitment like you talked about. So appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, Alex. Thank you guys so much for watching. Where can people connect with you, Alex? If they need help, they just want to bounce something off you on Facebook, Instagram, where can people find you?
Yeah, it's first thing people should know. I don't like social media. I'm very bad at it.
Sure.
So I grew up in Russia. We had none
Right.
of that, so, but yes, I do have an Instagram page. It is Alex Mashkin RE. That's my handle. And my Facebook page has the same handle. And that's probably the Instagram though is the number one place, or just give me a call.
I love it. I love it. Well, Alex, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll talk to you soon, and we appreciate you jumping on with us today.
Thank you very much.